David slammed his foot on the brake as the woman appeared in the middle of the road. The tires screamed against the wet ground, and the car spun a bit before stopping inches away from her. For several seconds, David couldn't breathe. The woman stood there silently, wearing a long white dress soaked by the rain. Her hair covered part of her face, but he could see her smile. A smile that was too wide, too unnatural. She slowly lifted her head and looked directly into his eyes. "Please," she whispered. David gripped the steering wheel tightly. "Please what?" he asked, his voice shaking. The woman's smile grew larger. "Give me your smile." A cold feeling traveled through his entire body. Every warning his grandmother had given him when he was a child suddenly came rushing back. Never answer a woman who calls your name after midnight. Never follow a voice in the darkness. And above all, never smile at the woman who asks for one. David quickly locked the doors. The woman tilted her head. "Why are you afraid?" she asked softly. "Everyone gives me one eventually." David started the engine. The car refused to move. He tried again. Nothing. The woman slowly walked closer. "Just one smile," she repeated. David squeezed his eyes shut. "God, please protect me." A few seconds passed. The sound of the rain stopped. The silence became unbearable. Then a whisper came from beside his ear. "Thank you." David opened his eyes. The woman was gone. The car started immediately. He drove away without looking back, but he didn't know that something had already followed him home. The next morning, David's wife, Amara, noticed something was wrong. Usually, their 6-year-old daughter, Zara, would wake him up by jumping on his bed. Usually, David would laugh, carry her, and pretend to be angry. But that morning, he sat quietly at the dining table. No smile, no laughter, no reaction. "Daddy," Zara said, holding a drawing, "I made this for you." David looked at the paper. It was a picture of their family holding hands. The old David would have hugged her. The old David would have told her how beautiful it was. Instead, he simply placed it down. "Thank you." Zara looked confused. Amara watched him carefully. "David, are you okay?" "I'm fine." "No, you are not." He looked at her. For a moment, Amara saw something terrifying. It wasn't sadness in his eyes. It was emptiness. That evening, she took him to the hospital. The doctors ran every test they could. Nothing was wrong. The doctor removed his glasses and sighed. "Physically, your husband is completely healthy." Amara frowned. "Then why does he look like he isn't even here?" The doctor hesitated. "We don't have an explanation." When they returned home, David finally spoke. "Amara," she looked at him. "I saw someone last night." Her heart tightened. "Who?" "A woman." "What woman?" David lowered his voice. "She asked me to smile." Amara became silent because she had heard that story before. Years earlier, when Amara was a child, her grandmother used to tell her about a woman who walked through villages at night, a woman who didn't take money, a woman who didn't take lives, a woman who took something worse: happiness. People who saw her would wake up days later unable to feel joy. They could still speak, they could still eat, they could still live, but something inside them disappeared forever. The villagers called her the Smile Collector. Amara always thought it was just an old tale until she saw her husband's empty eyes.
Within days, more people changed. An old teacher who was famous for making children laugh suddenly became silent. A young man preparing for his wedding stopped feeling excited about marrying the woman he loved. A mother who had always smiled while caring for her children began staring at them without emotion. Fear spread throughout the village. People locked their doors before sunset. Nobody walked alone. Nobody laughed outside at night. The village elders gathered to discuss what was happening. "We cannot ignore this anymore," one elder said. Another shook his head. "She has returned." A young man named Kofi laughed from the corner of the room. "You people still believe this?" Everyone looked at him. Kofi had recently returned from the city after many years away. He didn't believe in spirits or curses. "People are getting sick," he said. "That doesn't mean a ghost is stealing their smiles." An old woman sitting near the fire stared at him. Her name was Mama Ifwa. She had lived longer than anyone in the village. "You laugh now," she said quietly. Kofi smiled. "Because it sounds impossible." Mama Ifwa slowly stood. "Impossible things are sometimes the things that destroy people." Kofi shook his head. "My grandmother, with respect, fear can make people believe anything." The old woman walked closer. "Then answer me one question." Kofi looked at her. "What?" "If that woman appears in front of you tonight and asks for your smile, will you give it to her?" The room became silent. Kofi wanted to laugh again, but something about Mama Ifwa's voice stopped him. "I won't." The old woman stared into his eyes. "That is what everyone says before they meet her." That night, Kofi walked home alone. The village was unusually quiet. No music, no conversations, no children playing, only the sound of his footsteps. As he reached his house, he noticed something strange. A woman was standing at the end of the road, wearing white. Kofi stopped. His heart began to beat faster. The woman slowly turned toward him. Even from a distance, he could see it. That smile. She raised her hand. "Please." Kofi couldn't move. "Give me your smile." The words came out like a whisper. Kofi remembered Mama Ifwa's warning. He turned away. He refused to answer. But then, the woman said something that made his blood freeze. "Your grandmother gave me hers many years ago." Kofi slowly turned back. The woman was gone. But on the ground where she stood was an old wooden pendant, the same one Mama Ifwa always wore. Kofi picked it up, and for the first time in his life, he wondered if the stories were true. Because somewhere in the darkness, someone was laughing, and it sounded exactly like him.
Kofi ran back to Mama Ifwa's house with the pendant tightly held in his hand. He didn't knock. He pushed the door open. The old woman looked up immediately. The moment she saw the pendant, the color disappeared from her face. "Why did you get that?" Kofi struggled to catch his breath. "She gave it to me." Mama Ifwa slowly stood. "Who?" Kofi stared at her. "You know who." For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Mama Ifwa sat down heavily. "I prayed this day would never come." Kofi stepped closer. "Tell me the truth. Who is she?" The old woman looked toward the window, as if she was afraid someone was listening. "Her name was Adana." "She was human?" "Yes." Kofi frowned. "Then what happened to her?" Mama Ifwa closed her eyes. "She was the kindest woman this village had ever known. She healed the sick, she helped the poor, she brought happiness wherever she went." "Then why did she become this?" The old woman swallowed hard. "Because the people she loved destroyed her." She looked at Kofi. "Years ago, a terrible sickness came to this village. Many people died. The villagers needed someone to blame. They accused Adana of bringing the curse." Kofi's expression changed. "They killed her?" Mama Ifwa nodded slowly. "They buried her alive in the forest." Kofi felt anger rising inside him. "Why would they do that?" "Fear makes people do terrible things." The old woman's voice became softer. "Before she died, Adana cried and begged them to believe her, but nobody listened." "What were her last words?" Mama Ifwa looked at the pendant. She said, "You took my happiness from me. One day I will take yours." A cold silence filled the room. Kofi looked down. "And now she is collecting smiles." Mama Ifwa nodded.
Every smile she takes gives her more power. Every person she touches becomes another empty shell. Kofi remembered David. He remembered the way the man looked at his own daughter without emotion. How do we stop her? Mama Ifua didn't answer immediately. That frightened him more than anything. How? The old woman looked at him. Someone must willingly give her what she wants. Kofi frowned. My smile? No. She looked directly into his eyes. Your happiness. The next evening, the village gathered after another person disappeared. Nobody knew where he went. They only found his house open, his belongings untouched, and one message written on the wall: smiles are never free. Panic spread through everyone. People cried. Families held each other. The village chief looked at Mama Ifua. You know something. The old woman remained silent. You know how to stop this. Everyone turned toward her. Finally, she spoke. Someone must sacrifice themselves. A man stepped forward. Meaning, the smile collector must give something willingly. The villagers looked confused. What? Mama Ifua's eyes became heavy. A person's ability to feel happiness. Fear spread across the crowd. Nobody moved. Nobody volunteered, because everyone understood living without happiness was another kind of death.
That night, Kofi sat outside his house, watching families hide behind locked doors. He thought about his own life, his dreams, his future, his mother laughing when he was a child, his grandmother telling him stories. Could he really give all of that away? Then he remembered Zara, David's daughter. He remembered the little girl holding a drawing for a father who could no longer smile. He stood up. I'll do it. Mama Ifua, who was standing behind him, looked shocked. No. Kofi turned. If nobody does something, more people will suffer. You don't understand what you are giving away. Kofi looked at the village. Maybe I don't. His voice became emotional. But I understand what happens if nobody tries. Mama Ifua's eyes filled with tears. You remind me of someone. Who? Adana. Near midnight, Kofi walked into the forest alone. The air became colder with every step. He reached the place where Adana had been buried. A broken stone stood in the ground. Then he heard it. A woman's voice. You came. Kofi turned. The smile collector stood behind him. Her white dress moved with the wind. You are brave. Kofi stared at her. I know what happened to you. The woman's smile disappeared for a moment. You know nothing. I know they hurt you. Her eyes darkened. They laughed while I begged for my life. Her voice became filled with anger. They smiled as they buried me. A tear rolled down her face. The first tear Kofi had ever seen from her. I wanted them to understand my pain. Kofi lowered his voice. Taking happiness from innocent people won't bring yours back. The woman stepped closer. You think you are different from them? No. Kofi looked at her. I'm just someone who doesn't want more people to suffer. The smile collector stared at him. Why would you sacrifice yourself for strangers? Kofi answered quietly. Because someone has to stop the pain from spreading. For the first time, the woman looked uncertain. Then she touched his forehead. A powerful wind exploded through the forest. Kofi screamed as memories rushed through his mind. Every laugh, every happy moment, every feeling of joy, it all began disappearing. He fell to the ground. The smile collector stepped back. But something was wrong. The darkness around her began breaking apart. The stolen smiles of every victim started escaping her body. Golden lights filled the forest. One by one,
They flew back toward the village. The smile collector screamed, "No!" Her body cracked. "I only wanted them to feel what I felt." Kofi looked at her weakly. "You were hurt, but hurting others won't heal you." The woman's face changed. For the first time in decades, she looked human. A peaceful expression appeared on her face. "I am tired." Those were her final words. Her body turned to dust and disappeared with the wind. The next morning, the village changed forever. David hugged Amara and Zara, crying as his emotions returned. The mother, who had lost her smile, laughed while holding her baby. The villagers celebrated the return of their happiness. But Kofi stood quietly away from everyone. He watched people laugh. He wanted to feel happy. He wanted to join them, but he couldn't. Mama Efua walked beside him. "I'm sorry." Kofi smiled slightly. "Don't. You gave up the most precious thing a person has." Kofi looked at the village. "I gave it so they could keep theirs." The old woman held his hand. "Your heart is still full, even if you cannot feel it." From that day forward, the villagers never forgot the lesson. They learned that pain passed from one person to another when nobody chose compassion. And every year, they gathered to remember the young man who saved them. If this story touched your heart, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. I choose kindness. Because sometimes, the greatest heroes are not the ones who defeat monsters. They are the ones willing to sacrifice themselves to stop the pain. The end.